Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Mondays. This is episode 47. Now I know I haven't posted a Mordian Mondays in a couple of weeks, guys, but fear not, I have not been idle. I've been painting away for the Emperors. Now you might say, Emperors? Surely there's only one. Well guys, I've actually done some really good work on my Mordian rifles, completed a full 10-man squad, but I also was able to get 10 of my Japanese guys for my bolt action army as well. So that's why I said Emperors. So I'm going to go through everything that I've painted. I'll go through the Mordians first, then I'll start talking about the Japanese. I'll talk about some 9th edition stuff, how I think it's going to affect the Mordians, and then just some general thoughts on the Japanese and my bolt action progress. Because I did say I was going to start bringing in some bolt action videos, and I think the best place to do that at first is in the Mordian Mondays, where it's more of the hobby related stuff anyway. And I haven't managed to play any games for my Japanese yet because of lockdown, so I can't really give any tactical insight on them at the moment. But anyway, let's start off. It's a Mordian Mondays. Let's start off with some Mordian models. So, I completed a 10-man squad. It was another heavy bolter on the sergeant, and grenade launcher special weapon squad. This is the third squad that I've done like this. It is the third squad of third platoon. So lots of threes. It's the third squad of that loadout. It is the third squad of the third platoon. So 3-3-3. Sort of like a half devil, I suppose. Really enjoyed doing this squad. I was getting into the rhythm of it now. Enjoyed having the Vox caster and using lots of different parts. And one thing I would say, and I don't like to blow my own trumpet or toot my own horn, whatever the expression is, but at this point, even when we're reaching sort of the 200 mark with the regular line infantry guardsmen, I've managed to keep, I think, every single model unique that I can keep unique. So the monopose Mordians, obviously I'm not going to butcher them and convert them, and they're going to stay pristine. But of all the Cadian models that I've worked on, which I think is approximately about 100 now, I've managed to keep every single one of those models unique, which is it's a big effort, and it just goes to show. And I'm very lucky because I've been collecting Warhammer for a long time as well, but it does go to show that if you have a big enough bits box and you're willing to crack out that hobby knife and use different heads and get the green stuff or milliput going, you really can make a very, very unique, colourful, flavourful army. And don't forget, guys, I've been using Snapfit Guardsmen as well, and I've still managed to keep the plastic models, every single one of them, unique. So yeah, it's been really, really good. And this squad is, again, I've added loads of character to it. I've done that by using Scion bits for the heads and for the equipment, Anvil Industry stuff. I've used the Cadian Sergeant head with the Vox bead a couple of times throughout the unit. You don't just have to put it on a Sergeant. If the Sergeant is already standout enough, like this one is, the bolt and a chainsaw, then you can put it on a regular infantry guy. It looks absolutely fine. Vehicle crew heads, and that's a space. That Auspex guy's actually got a Space Marine dagger, and there's some Space Marine grenades. So I'm not saying every model is, it's unique, but it's not. You might not notice it because, for example, I might have two guardsmen that look very similar. They've both got the rifle with a bayonet. They've both got the same sort of head swap, but one, they might both have the same guard equipment belt, but one will have Imperial, guardsman grenades, and one will have Space Marine grenades. It's only a small change, almost imperceptible on its own, but when you're making those tiny changes, and some are much bigger changes than others, when every model has at least a small change like that, across the whole army, the impression it gives is one of, there's a lot of character, a lot of flavour to the whole army. So and I've only sort of learnt that doing it through the Mordian Restoration Project, because one of the concerns I had when I was making all these models unique was, is the army going to look too ragtag? Is the army, is there not going to be enough uniformity between the models, so where the army actually just looks like a collection of jumbled parts? But the key is, if you've got to keep that colour scheme ultra consistent, and as long as the colour scheme is ultra consistent, you can almost get away with some pretty wacky conversions and some pretty crazy changes to the models. So even though these guys, it might sound crazy, but even though the 3rd platoon models have got the beret heads, when you put them, the 3rd platoon guys, alongside the regular Cadian guys, just with the Anvil Industry head swaps with the parade caps, you almost, when you've got them all out and you've got them on the tabletop, you really don't notice the difference. It's just they're all green with blue with green edge highlights, and it's only when you go stop and go, oh yeah, that platoon has got beret heads. It's only when you take a second to look at it do you realise it. Take that moment to not just look at the army as a whole, but to actually look at the individual models. So you get that opportunity to create a really flavourful characterful force, but not run the risk of having it just look like you've got 2 or 3 armies which you've mashed together, which is one of the big criticisms that a lot of people have with tournament armies, which is, especially if tournament players, a very common practice with tournament players is to swap models. So all the tournament guys, it's like a big club, they all know it, all the regular tournament guys, like the Team Scotland, Team Wales, Team England people, they all know each other really well, and so they're more than happy, and they've got friends, sort of on the periphery of that group as well. So they're more than happy to just swap models. Like me, I'm personally, I wouldn't do it because I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I'm super protective of my models, and I don't like lending them. And the 1 or 2 times that I have lent them, it's they've come back basically broken or not looked after as much as I would have done. So I don't tend to lend models, but the point is that they often will have models that they've borrowed from 2 or 3 different people. They put them together for the ultra competitive list, and they're playing at the tournament, and it looks like 3 armies which have been mashed together. Yeah, fair play to them. It'll be they might all look different colours, but I'm using Ultramarines across the board, or that's less likely. Imperial Fists across the board. They were more competitive in 8th. So fair enough, but it still looks like you've just mashed a bunch of dudes together to make an army. All I can say is don't worry about that too much if, when you're converting your models, as long as you keep the colour scheme consistent across the whole army, you shouldn't have any problems with that. And that was one of, just the last point on this point, that was one of my biggest issues with my old Mordian 50th rifles with the old red and white and tan colour scheme. Because it had been done over a long period of time, the basing wasn't consistent. There was different flocks. I'd used different whites on the helmets and everything, and it was just, it wasn't consistent at all. So even though, and all the models were like a total hodgepodge and broken and mashed together and re-glued. So even though there was a semi-consistent colour scheme across that whole army, because the basing was all different across all the different squads, it just looked terrible. It did not look good, the old colour scheme. It's amazing that anyone even bothered watching my videos with the way my old army was painted. So there we go. So that's all the painting and hobbying sort of lessons learned. I am now officially announcing that I'm taking a slight break from painting the Mordians, and the reason for that is 9th edition. So being totally honest with you guys, I'm still very much on the fence with 9th edition. As more and more information is coming out, I am warming up to it a little bit more. But it's still very much I can't help but get the feeling that my pure infantry Mordian rifle army is going to be taking a big hit. And that, no matter how, I love my Mordian 50 rifles, and I love painting them, and whether they're good or not, I'm still going to be working towards repainting every model in my collection. But it is also at the same time, naturally, just being totally honest and upfront with you guys, it is difficult to paint stuff if you think it's going to be rubbish. I enjoy painting my pure infantry army because it's always been, pretty competitive and pretty good. But I've tempered that by not necessarily taking the most efficient weapon choices all the time. So, heavy bolters are okay, but now we know missile launchers are better. Grenade launchers are alright, but, plasma guns are probably better overall. But you know what? I was like, I'm splitting it 50-50. I'm collecting the pure infantry angle, which is the best angle for guard, but I'm tempering it with less competitive stuff so that it's good. It's strong, but not totally OP, and so I'm able to lean into the fluff. But if my infantry army is taking a big hit, then obviously that's sad, because I love the Mordian 50 rifles, and you know, we've spent years and years being able to play pure infantry guard at a competitive level, and that might just disappear overnight, which would be very sad. So I'm a little bit in wait and see mode. Even though I'm going to eventually paint every model in my collection, I am a little bit in wait and see mode, because if it turns out that armor is going to be super powerful, then naturally I will just want to switch over to painting some armor up. I mean, I've painted now in just over a year. I've painted like 237 infantry models at least for my Mordian 50 rifles, maybe more. Might have painted slightly more. So, you know, we're looking at around 250. You know, we're getting to the 250 mark. Might even be 200 and, just looking at it now, I think it might be 239. So we're almost at 250. You know, we'll round up and say we're about the 250 mark. So that's okay. You know, I've painted a lot of infantry, and it's okay. You know, I don't. If 9th edition comes along and makes my armor really good, then I'm gonna naturally just want to switch on to that. So I'm in a bit of a wait and see. I'm a little concerned overall. I know I've seen some articles where people are saying it looks like Guard are in a position to like sweep through 9th edition. I'm not sure about it. I still feel like a lot of these changes are going to make Guard struggle, but I don't have the full picture yet. So I'm holding off from being super pessimistic, because I don't want this channel to become like just a salt factory. I want this channel to be about optimism. That's what I started it on. You know, when Guard were in the toilet in 7th edition, and everyone basically wrote them off as a competitive army and said you can't win a game at a tournament, you can barely win a friendly game with them. I made this channel to give Guard players like hope and positivity, and that's what, you know, if Guard end up being in the toilet again in 9th edition, then that's fine, man. We just, you know, we had our time in the sun. You know, we had an edition where we started off strong, and our you know, the sun was setting on the Guard bit by bit as 8th edition went on, but we were still fine. We were still a solid army. You know, if 9th edition comes along and we end up being in the toilet again, it's kind of like, back in old familiar territory, eh? You know, this is where we belong. Time to do what the Guard do best and go down fighting, but give the enemy a bloody nose and give them a greater appreciation for our army, and not just auto write it off. Because there's nothing, you know, I know I'm going a bit of a tangent here, but there's nothing quite like in 7th edition when you turn up to tournament with your Guard army and it was pure infantry and people were like, "You're mad. You're totally mad," and then you were able to beat them, and it was an uphill battle, and maybe the dice gods had to be with you, but if you beat them, they never underestimated Guard again. You know, and you'd come across that player again at another tournament, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, it's you!" Like, if you got your pure infantry again, you'd be like, "You know it, bro," and you know they'd be like, "Oh man, that army totally took me by surprise last time." So if that's where we end up being again in 9th edition, then that's, you know, that's silver lining to every cloud. Another reason that I am, you know, taking a little break from the Mordians is because I have other projects that I have just totally put on hold for the last year, over a year, sort of year and a couple of months, and I really want to get on top of those projects. Some of them I feel I've been sat on for literally years, and I just need to knuckle down and commit myself to them and just get them done. Some of them are newer ones that I've recently put money into, and I want to actually build and paint the models. So I've got enough Mordian infantry now, especially taking into account the points changes that might be coming along with 9th edition, and I've got a variety of units now. You know, I now have 6 fire support squads for my Guard. You know, I've got and I've actually got enough special weapon. I've got 7 heavy weapons. One of them's a heavy bolter, so I could easily do 7 fire support squads. And I've got 9 combat squads. That if 9th is going to be more combat based, then, you know, bring on the melters and the flamer squads. You know, maybe my Mordian assault army is going to become OP all of a sudden, which would be awesome if that was the case. And I've also got decent combat potential with my Ogrins and my Bulgrins, and I've got some, you know, I've got a good spread now. At this point, I've got a good spread of all the different special weapons. I think I've got 6 of every special weapon now, apart from snipers. I've definitely got 6 grenade launchers. I've definitely got 6 plasma, and then I have a mixture of flamer and melter. You know, between the flame and melter, I've got about 9, maybe more. So I've got a good mix, a good mix of my special weapons. So I've got all my bases covered for my pure infantry side. So now it's going to wait and see. Nitrogen comes along, and you know, I don't need as much infantry, and maybe I need to sort of put 3 tank commanders into my list. Then great times. You know, I can paint 3 tank commanders in like a week. Tanks are super quick to paint. I mean, I have to strip the models and everything, but you know, I can paint them up no problem. So that's a little bit, you know, a little bit wait and see. And I've got I've reached the point of the project where I can take a little step back and paint something else. And so one of the projects that I want to get done is bolt action. Okay, I've committed heavily to bolt action. I've got 30 Japanese infantry built and base coated, and I've got, I think it's 9 special weapon sort of support sprues. In fact, I can probably get them out now. You know, I've got a medium machine gun, a medium mortar. I've got an anti-tank gun, an anti-tank rifle, some suicide anti-tank guys, because Japanese are a bit crazy. I've got my Japanese Army HQ. I've got a little 70mm howitzer, and I've got this Baron Nishi guy, who's basically a Japanese officer on a horse. Who, you know, if you can get a guy on a horse, another reason to come over to the bolt action gang, guys. You can take officers on horses if you play the Japanese. Boom. So that's what I've got there, and I've I've dropped like 100 quid on the army now. At most, I might need another 30 infantry. At most, that would be more than enough, and maybe a tank and a tankette. But that shouldn't take me too long to paint up, because the colour scheme is much quicker than it is for my Mordian 50 rifle. So I want to get the bolt action done. I really like the idea of bolt action as a game system, and I've seen some battle reports and I like it. I used to hate the picking the dice out of the bag mechanic, but I've kind of grown to learn to appreciate it, because it's a smaller game, so it's nowhere near as lethal as 40k, so it kind of works. Yeah, so I want to do that, and that's what I've been working on this week. So I have painted up 10 over the last couple of weeks. I've painted up 10 Japanese infantry, and I have painted, at the moment I've got them split into 2 5-man squads, but I'm trying to play the army like really historically. And one of the things I've been loving about bolt action is I've been really delving into my World War II history, really delving into it, and really immersing and marinating myself in World War II Japanese sort of just military doctrine and weapons and thinking. Like, I've not really gone into like the battles or anything, and I know the Japanese did some like horrible atrocities and crazy shit. Like, I'm not looking at that at the moment. You know, it's not why I picked the army. I picked the army because I like just the thematic idea of, you know, banzai charges and stuff like that. And so how I'm running at the moment is before I forget, I was going to say, and it's really nice being able to do that immersion thing, because with the Guard thing, I've been immersed in the Guard for so long, I kind of know all the fluff and how the army plays and everything like the back of my hand. And when I play when I collect other armies like Gene Stealer Cult and Black Templars and stuff, I know the general fluff for them as well. So, you know, it's not as, you don't quite get that same feeling, but when you're dropping into them, that's like totally new. Like, I never looked at the Pacific Theatre at all. I just assumed it was all about, you know, Americans versus Japanese. I hadn't really appreciated that there was a lot of other stuff going on. Now, I'm not going to get into this video, but, you know, it's really interesting. So I've been really enjoying doing that. And so what I've done is I've currently got my squads built as 2 5-man Japanese units, with each one led with an NCO, a sergeant, with an SMG. Now, that's actually, I've just painted those models for now, but actually when I put the squad together properly, I'm going to have 10 guys just with rifles, and I'm not going to have any SMGs in the army unless I'm going to like a tournament and I want to be a bit more competitive. And some of you might be thinking, well, you know, Morning Glory, explain bolt action to me, what the heck's going on with this stuff? I don't understand any of it. Right. Basically, the Japanese are a close combat army, and you've got a load of bonuses that allow you to just get into combat. A lot of other armies can struggle to get into close combat because when your squads get shot at, they get pinned down. Pin markers next to them. The more they get shot at, the more pinned they get, and so it can get to the point where your guys are just like, I'm not getting up. I've hit the dirt. I'm staying down. But the Japanese have the ability to, as long as they essentially do a charge move or a bit like an advance in 40k, except for it's not random. It's 6 inches as your regular move, and then if you advance, you go another 6. There's not just a random dice roll. God, that's refreshing. No, there's so little randomness in bolt action. It's great. And so the Japanese have this ability where if you advance, like you do a banzai charge, you don't even have to make it to the enemy. You can just move your 12 inches forward. You can ignore your pin markers, so your guys literally, like, they don't care how much they've been shot at. They just go banzai and there's like charge forward. It's really good. And they have lots of bonuses when they get into combat, because combat in bolt action is really brutal. Normally you have 1 round of combat, and whoever wins it, and the other squad just surrenders. The Japanese fight to the last man, so even if they go into combat and they fluff it and they like lose loads of people, they don't just give up. They just keep that combat keeps going and going and going, which is rich. So all you need to do is have 1 lucky round with the Japanese, and you can make your opponent just surrender. You might take a hammering on the first round, and then next round your opponent fluffs his rolls. You get just a couple of good rolls. You kill 1 more guy than your opponent, and then he sits down and surrenders. So it's really good. So SMGs are, the submachine guns. They're like, the like little assault rifles kind of thing that fire pistol rounds rather than rifle rounds. I'm sure you guys all know about SMGs. You're military people, sort of military nerds like me, and they actually give you bonuses for being in combat. So you've got a really short range with an SMG, but when you get into combat, it's like having an extra dice to fight. I think if you kill a guy, you get an extra dice. So it's really good. Whereas rifles, you don't get that. But the thing is that the Japanese, like I said, totally weird, like the way some of the Japanese weapon doctrines. The Japanese did not see the advantage of SMGs. Like, every other army in the world was like, yeah, we need to be able to spit out as many bullets as possible. Japanese were like, no, rifles. All you need is bolt action rifles, you need nothing else. So it's kind of crazy. But so when I'm playing like a fluffy, historical, just fun game with my Japanese guys, I'm going to take 10-man squads, and they're all going to have rifles. When I am playing competitively, I'm going to want to have like at least 1 SMG per 10 men. So basically, I've painted the more competitive choices now, just got them out of the way. The ones that I'm not actually excited about the SMGs all that much. The Japanese did have them, but they only built like 10,000 of them, which is nothing in World War II. Like, people were churning out like 10,000 guns a week practically, and so they barely built any of them, and there's evidence to say that none of them ever actually made it to combat. They were all used for like the home defense. So when I'm playing properly and historically, and that's a really big thing in bolt action, like, don't just take the most OP shit. Even when you go into tournaments, don't just take the most OP stuff, because you will be docked for it. Your army has to be historical. So if I turn up and every squad's got an SMG, that's super unhistorical. But if I turn up and every squad is, 10-man, rifles, bayonets fixed, banzai charge across the board, I'm going to get a lot of historical points, which is great. So that's what I'm going towards with my Japanese. I'm going to have a solid core of between 5 and 6, depending on what the mission allows, because missions determine what your force org looks like a lot of the time. 5 and 6 10-man rifle squad, banzai and across. But then I'll also need, they've got to be able to have some fire support, so I'm going to have like one medium machine gun. I love the woodpecker machine gun the Japanese had. It was like in theory it was great, in reality it was terrible. I just love that whole, like, on paper it's good, but in reality it just didn't work. And I'm going to have an anti-tank gun and an anti-tank rifle team, and like a little howitzer, a little mortar, so that I've got some fire support, so that when my guys are charging across the board, I'm able to put pin markers on the enemy, which means the enemy units will start like hitting the dirt and not wanting to fight back, and then my Banzai boys can get in there, and even if, you know, and I just need to win one combat, even if they like gun down like 4 or 5 of my 10-man squad, and I make it to combat, and even if I lose that first round of combat, all I need to do is just kill one more guy than the enemy does in one of those rounds. That's all I need to do. And if I do that, I make their whole unit sit on the floor and give up. So that's the tactics that I'm building up for with my bolt action. And that's what I'm hoping will work. And it might work, it might not. The Japanese are not the most competitive army in bolt action at all. But they have some tricks up their sleeves, and even if an opponent is kind of aware of the rules, if they've not faced them before, it can really catch them off guard. So I'm excited. So what I'm doing, so that's what I'm working on right now. A little introduction to bolt action, a little sprinkling of rules and tactics and thoughts and whatnot, you know, and a bit of history behind it. So we're going to try that. Other projects that I'm working on, I'm actually currently building up a Death Korps Krieg army. Exciting, I know. And I'm going to build them up into the same colour scheme as my Armageddon 234th Mechanized, so that I can use the tanks. I can basically use either have a pure infantry Armageddon list, or I can use the tanks from the Armageddon Steel Legion and use them as, you know, to support my Krieg. The 2 regiments will be interchangeable basically, and I'm actually going to get those commissioned painted. So I'm actually a little behind schedule. I've built 30 and I need to build 70 more by like the second week of July. So I've got a week and a bit to do it. So a bit tricky, but I'll get it done. You know, I'll get it done. It's not a problem. And I'm going to build those up, and then I'm going to pay one of my friends who's a commissioned painter, and he's going to paint them up for me. And so I'll be able to work on 2 projects at the same time. So I am the bottleneck. When it comes to getting new army stuff on the board, I am the bottleneck. I'm the problem. So if I can, you know, start making use of my commission painter friends' services more often, then I'll be able to consistently have 2 projects on the works, which will be really, really, really good. Anyway, we're going to end that video there because it's gone a bit longer than I wanted to. I guess there was a lot of catching up, and I was covering, you know, Mordian's and bolt action today's episode. Next week, we're going to have some more bolt action to show off. So the little guy on the banner on thumbnail will be a bolt action guy next week, hopefully. And yeah, that's what we've got to look forward to. I'm not sure yet whether I'm going to paint up my medium machine, because I really love that model and really excited to paint it, or if I'm going to paint up another 10-man infantry squad. We shall see what the mood strikes. I feel like if I just get all my 30 infantry painted out of the way first, I can then take some time and love over my special weapons and support teams. But I reckon I can get 10 guys done in a week. I've got 20 left, so that's 2 weeks work there. And then I reckon I can get 2 special weapons, 2 blister packs done. Because, I should have said, guys, the bolt action support teams, they come in the old school nostalgic blister packs. Way better than the current Games Workshop ones. And they're such a good price. Honestly, I was blown away. I mean, I'm not going to toot the horn about it too much because I want to wrap the video up. But to buy a blister pack from Warlords is like £6. Like a character is like £6. Not £20, 6. So like medium machine guns like £6-7. They're all like £6 or £7. I picked up I picked up like pretty much one of every blister that I wanted, and it was like about 50 quid or something. It was really, really good. So anyway, so if you want to scratch that itch of the old blister packs, go to Warlord Games. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. I reckon I'll be able to get 2 to 3 done a week. So we're looking, I reckon, at 3 more weeks. So I reckon in halfway through August, I'll have my bolt action army finished. Well, what I've got bought finished. That should give me enough for a decent sort of 500 to 750 point army for my bolt action. And then we should Then I will need to buy another 30 infantry, so that's another 3 weeks. And then a couple of tanks which I'll be able to get done in a week. So we're probably looking... I would like to have this army, if I really commit to it and stop getting addicted to Hearts of Iron 4 and wasting all my weekends playing that, I really think that I will be able to get this army done by the end of August. And an army in 2 months is pretty impressive work. So... And that's a full bot action army. That'll be like 1,250 points. I'll never need more than that. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys are excited to look forward to it. Let me know down in the comment section below. Do you want to see a medium machine gun or do you want to see another 10 infantry? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Let me know if you want me to go into more detail on the bolt action stuff and the Japanese and how the rules work. I'm happy to do that. And when I get some games about it, I'll be able to tell you what works and what doesn't. And it'll be quite interesting if I do like a what I think is going to work versus what actually works videos. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.